Here we are at the Signature Safety Sim in Kitely. The Signature Safety Sim is a place for instruction about safety, and I've got the people who are two people who are handling this instruction down here below, and I'm kind of moving down and viewing you. And so my first question, and I'm interviewing both of you, is what is it that you are doing here? What is your main instructional business?
Well, I personally have been involved in the video world for several years, and have been intrigued with the possibility of using this for real-world instruction and education. So I talked to Mike and one of the other owners and said, let's give it a try. And we looked at Kitely, which we found we feel gives the best bang for the buck and has been a tremendous support, and start developing this. So our intention is to slowly create the different types of areas where we do training, whether it be in residential construction, commercial construction, antenna operations, even rail siding with the transfer of chemicals, etc. And by creating each of these little vignettes around our world, we can then go from the traditional PowerPoint presented computer-based training to a more visual hands-on approach with a combination of the PowerPoint discussion and hands-on. And of course, here we are standing in front of our campus where we do have our traditional classrooms and conference hall.
Yeah. And
so with it, well, my name is Mike. I'm one of the owners of Signature Safety. When Dick brought this idea to me, I was completely foreign to it. Besides putting a VR set on for 2 minutes and seeing what could be done, I've never been in world. And when he brought me inside and he started to show me how he could build different things, it makes that VR world brings things to light when you're trying to explain something to people in a classroom. It makes things look a lot more realistic. It makes things easier to show them. And then when this COVID hit, we've actually used some of this training virtually already because of it. So I was very intrigued, completely new to it, and I let Dick run with the whole thing, and he's built a world that I think is going to be very advantageous for us. And the more he shows me, the more ideas I have as things come along.
yeah, that sounds great. Do we want to go to some place with that where you can show the audience what your training looks like, training location looks like?
Sure. Why don't we jump over to the Mike? Why don't we jump over to the excavation confined space area? Because that's where I've also got the how I pop up a big screen to do PowerPoint, etc., along with hands-on, and we can kind of briefly walk through almost what a training session would look like standing there in an actual environment.
Oh, that will be great. Okay, let's go.
All right, so here we are standing next to a confined space and excavation area, which is very common in road construction and general construction. And so one of the things we found and have been beneficial to our clients is we can do things here that we cannot necessarily do in the field, or we would have to find a training room, pull employees off the job site. Well, we can do some things right here. So as an example, I'm standing here in front of a manhole that's next to an excavation where they're placing some pipes that are going to connect to manholes. Well, the main gist of this conversation is going to be around confined space, entering this manhole. So our traditional approach to this would be to use a PowerPoint. So we can bring up a board, which you can see now behind me, and here is our traditional PowerPoint presentation. It allows us to walk through And there are some limitations to computer speed, which sometimes takes a little time for some slides to load, but that's a thing you get used to. So we can talk about the hazards. We can talk about the different things that we would talk about in a confined space. But then when we actually get down to how do we enter, now we've got a manhole behind us that allows us to open the manhole. You can see the manhole cover moved out of the way. You're going to need to get into the manhole, so it's going to need a ladder, and so I can res a ladder, and it shows up. They wear fall protection equipment and are attached to a retrieval device, so we would put a tripod in place. And that tripod, of course, now we need to protect this hole so other people don't go in. So we would discuss putting in a railing and what's the appropriate railing and the heights and location. And of course, we want to make sure that the air in there is safe. So we put a 4-gas meter that would be in here. It would be testing the air inside to certain parameters. And of course, this is all guided by a program or plan. So we would have a permit. So here's a clipboard. And once it takes a second for it to come clear, there's actually a 2-page permit here that you would review these items with the employee. And then one of the things might be there's not enough air. So we would put a blower in here. And now you can see there's an electric blower behind us with a hose coming down is bringing fresh air down into it. So you can do a lot of hands-on type things that you couldn't do necessarily face-to-face in this COVID world. Well, one of the advantages, and I'm going to actually go behind the what you currently see, stand on the road for a second, but I'm going to lift the road out of the way, something you definitely cannot do in the real world. And when we do this, I'm going to jump down in the hole, safely, of course, but I can now look directly into the side of the excavation and the side of the manhole and discuss what goes on at this level, which is something you cannot do in the real world. So you can see there's a lot of benefits to not only just having a presentation, having a conversation with the employees that are being trained, working through each of the parts, but you can see it from an aspect you just cannot do other than in the virtual world. Mike, anything to add to that?
Yeah, so what we're seeing, we are looking at, we're looking around in the excavation, and I think Mike may need to turn on his microphone. We are noting how easily you can do this, and we're also noting that you can make a video of this. So if you wanted to give instruction by a standard piece of instruction, you wouldn't necessarily have to do it just by showing people a PowerPoint. You can make a video, and they can watch that video at any time at their own convenience. Are you planning on making
Correct.
videos?
Absolutely, because there's the benefit. There's obviously the benefit of face-to-face conversation, talking with the student, etc. But there are times, or especially for specific things, you want to focus on an item of training, where a video, which could be refreshed with a crew, they could watch 2 to 5 minutes, and it give them a lot of the items. They just need to go over and remember day to day. So there's a benefit to doing the face-to-face conversation like this. And then, of course, a lot of these pieces can be used to review the material at a future date with the employee.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I did another article about some similar topic, and somebody who had a video about a particular event, an accident of some sort, and they were reviewing the accident and explaining and showing how the accident occurred. You will also be able to do that, wouldn't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And actually, you know what? The next thing, Selby, I think we should go over and take a look at in our large commercial building behind us, 2-story commercial building, is we actually did do I had a project discussed to me that they had a fall protection issue at a mall where they were going to be renovating the walkways in the middle. So I rendered some aspects of that in world and was able to present them a visual they didn't have. It came out so well that I actually took a part of that visual, put it inside of this building, and I actually now have an example of certain things to be thinking about in fall protection that came from a request from a client for information. I turned it into a visual by rendering it here in 3D, and then I've also continued to use it as part of fall protection discussions in this. So if we'd like, why don't we go over to the commercial building?
Okay, let's go over there.